the emissary, and I have really started enjoying his content. I've really started enjoying his content. He started, I just was introduced to it like a few weeks ago, and ever since that, every now and then I'll check out one, especially when it's recommended to me, on Discord. And this is the history of colorism in India, not colonialism, or yeah, it's colorism. And I think it has to do with the fact that everyone wants paler skin. Everyone wants paler skin. I don't understand that. I don't. But then again, I'm a white man, so what do I have to care about getting paler to look like a vampire? What purpose would that serve? So everyone wants paler skin. I don't get it, but yeah, the history of colorism in India.
ये क्या किया तुमने? तुमने कभी बच्चे को मार ही डाला था। इतना भयानक बच्चा।
Skin color.
I mean, everything he did, I mean, it's like, yeah, of course.
Something that has united us and divided us for millennia. It's one of the first things you see when you look at a person. It defines races, ethnicities, even individuals. While modern notions around race and ethnicity are just that, modern. Skin color is something that has always been relevant. Nowhere is that more true than in the Indian subcontinent. India is one of the cradles of humanity, a land of infinite diversity and thousands of years of traditions. People across the subcontinent look drastically different, but there's always been an idea of India since ancient times. Despite being of so many different colors, both outsiders and insiders recognize an idea of an Indian. Many Indians can tell you how diverse these colors are even in their family. The light-skinned brother, the dark-skinned sister, the generic brown dad and mom, all this is fairly common. But today, only one set of shades are really admired in India, light-skinned ones. And it's been like this for a while, but not always. For me, I've always been conscious of my skin color. I was light-skinned for Indians, but a bit too brown for Americans. More importantly though, was the day I noticed a snow-white splotch on my knee. It started to spread slowly but surely. I was then diagnosed with a condition called vitiligo, where my own immune system attacks the melanin in my skin. Each day I saw what made me Indian chip away. It's probably the reason why I'm so interested about—
I mean, that's what Michael Jackson was dealing with. Michael Jackson was dealing with that. But yeah, I mean, it chips away at you, and it's like, I don't understand when it comes to, again, because I grew up poor. I mean, my parents gave me everything me and my brothers could ever wish. But the thing is, I was incredibly sick growing up, so a lot of the bills went to like hospital bills. So we didn't have like a rich life, but we had a comfortable life. But I remember it's just like going to school and seeing the impoverished kids around me, the Hispanics, the blacks, the redneck whites. I mean, you get all of it. I grew up around it. I didn't realize, because everyone literally had the same kind of upbringing. Everyone had the same kind of upbringing. Every single color, every single demographic, they all were poor. So for me, I was just so used to it. I was so used to it. To me, it's just like, oh, everyone's the same. No matter what color you are, you're all the same. Some of these older folks made extremely racist stuff. Yeah, they did. I mean, heck, what is it? I mentioned it the other day. It was a film from the United States. I think it was in either 1930. It was a really old film. Birth of the Nation from like 1930, 1927, 1930, something like that, where every single black was all blackface. It was a white dude with just a face painted black. It was like, what the heck is this?
India today. But anyways, enough about me. This is a tale about us. This is the story about a people who used to worship black gods, but ended up worshiping white men. This is the history of colorism in India. First, let's start off with some background. Why is India so diverse in terms of skin color? The obvious answer is size and geography. India is called a subcontinent for a reason. It has various biomes and climates, leading to people adapting in different ways, skin color included. But we also have to recognize something else. we have to talk about the peopling of India, or the various groups that migrated into India and mixed and made all these different groups, well, Indian. Now this happens everywhere across the world, especially in ancient times. Migration is a norm in human history. Various different ethnicities and tribes and groups would migrate in and out of regions. This is, again, super normal. Only in India is this type
Nomadic.
of stuff politicized to this degree. And we'll talk about why later in the video. The reason I'm bringing it up now though is because it's important to understand these variations in skin color. To put it briefly, India has about 4 or 5 different groups, you could say, that have migrated into India and mixed to make Indians. Pretty much all Indians are a mix of the first 3, and some have the 4th and 5th group. The first group we're talking about is the ancient ancestral South Indians. Now I'm saying South Indian, but that's kind of a misnomer here. It's not necessarily the best way to describe it, but that's what scientists describe it as. All Indians have this AASI DNA in them. These are some of the first migrants out of Africa who arrived probably around 60 to 70,000 years ago, give or take, and they are the main source of our darker skin. Next are migrants from around Iran. These people came from around 10,000 to 9,000 years ago. They were probably a lighter shade of brown than the AASI people who already were in India, and these groups started to mix, and that's how the Indus Valley civilization came about. Then comes people from the steppe, and this was kind of a continuous trickle migration from probably around 4,000 years ago, maybe a bit later, but these people came from Central Asia and had probably the lightest brown skin, we could say. They came in waves and they integrated with the local population. Now, combine all these 3 groups and you start getting cultures like the Vedic culture. And keep in mind, this history is still kind of contested, it's still kind of shifting, there's multiple theories, so maybe some groups came earlier, some groups came later, but the point of this video we're talking about is this mix of skin colors, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, all 3 of these groups are in almost every single Indian, I'd say, probably 95% plus, if not even more. We are a mix.
He's a fan of Aladdin. He's a fan of Aladdin. I was checking out his background, and then I see the genie's lamp. I need to get myself one of those. And
I just want to emphasize, every Indian is indigenous because of this. When it comes to the ancient beliefs of these people, they worshipped Indian land. They worshipped Indian gods, Indian flora, Indian fauna. Their holy sites are in India. This is what indigenous means. So just, again, keep this in mind. We are all a mix. We're just of different ratios, which usually varies around region or caste. And we'll talk about this later too. Just trust me. Let's keep going. In terms of the last 2 groups, one is the Austroasiatic people who came from Southeast Asia probably around 4,000 to 3,000 years ago. And these people have a lot of impact on tribal populations. So you may have heard of something called Adivasi. Again, this is like a misnomer. Like, everyone is Adivasi. Everyone has a mix of some groups that came earlier, some groups that came later. So this term is kind of BS, to be honest. And then around the same time, and definitely a bit after, we had some.
But people utilize it in order to claim like, oh, we're the original. I think that kind of thing is absolutely stupid. After you've spent thousands of years in a place, like, you know, intermixing and marrying and whatever, whoever wants to claim the originality is just a retard lying to themselves. And the fact, like, in India, and not just in India, but the fact that politicians use that as a way to gain election, I think is retarded. Because it shows how sheeple people really are, that they want to feel superior, that they'll vote on the basis that they are the first ones. I mean, it's just like, again, I'm part of a baby nation, like one of the youngest nations, so it's not a big deal. I guess Israel would be the youngest nation at this point in time. But yeah, that part of a baby nation, which is literally this year turning 250 years old. But it's crazy. I don't think anything really matters. Like, I don't care if someone came here and became, like, my father originated in Mexico, but he's an American now. He's absolutely an American. He became a citizen in like 2015, 2016. He became a citizen of the United States of America. He is an American. It's that simple. It's that simple. I don't see him as any different. He speaks English. Sure, it's still like Spanglish. It's you could tell he's from Mexico. He has his like a Hispanic accent, but other than that, he's integrated well enough. He's integrated well enough. I don't understand this combat where, like, Dad, you aren't an American. You weren't born here. You are a second-class American. I mean, how disrespectful is that? And that's literally what these people are doing. Imagine doing that to a family member, but you're doing this to a distant relative, someone who is a native, I was going to say Native American, a native Indian, who is a native Indian, has been in India all their life, and their family has been in India all their life, and their grandparents have been in India all their life, and then you make fun of them because, you know, 2,000 years ago, your ancestors migrated here. What? What? You're trying to run an election on that? On that? so stupid. It's so stupid. But then again, a lot of it is, especially when it comes to like politics. People will run on the stupidest thing, like vote for me or else you're all racist. If America doesn't vote for me, America is racist. Like, you know, that whole thing happening in 2008.
Some people coming from the Tibetan Plateau. That's how we see some Indians with some more East Asian features. These two groups definitely contribute to that. Combine all 5 of these groups and you get crazy diversity, especially in terms of skin color. And this mix of lineages, even within a single Indian family, kind of explains why you see so much variation within families. I know some of you guys have made fun of your dark brother or sister, so you know you can't get away from that here. We're going to talk about that. But enough biology and basically prehistoric history. What did ancient Indians themselves think about skin color?
Yeah, I make fun of my black brother all the time. All the time. I just did a stream with him the other day. Did nothing but make fun of him, especially on his dating. Lord
We first
Voldemort.
start with the Vedas. Now, most people will probably start talking about Varna or how it's equivalent to color or something like that, but this is kind of a stretch. This is kind of like another politicization that we're talking about here. It's not exactly how it was. Varna is an ancient word for caste. Now, in some commentaries, you will see some colors associated with, say, white for Brahmins, red for Kshatriyas, yellow for Vaishyas, and black for Shudras. And while you can say maybe this holds up to skin color, you'll start to understand why it does not as we start going through the scriptures. Color in the Vedas is a very special thing. It is used primarily for symbolism, and sometimes people kind of misinterpret this. So you'll hear things like, oh, people have golden hair or shining red hair, then golden eyes, golden skin, shining bright white. And this is mostly to do with metaphors for the sun or fire, or generally describing like a fiery or sun-like aspect to people. Keep in mind, we have geographic descriptors of the Vedas, and this is all in India, and there's not that many blonde people in India as I know so far. There's also symbolism in terms of white being a color of purity or newness or hope, and then black being a color of darkness and ignorance and evil. Now, sometimes people transpose these into, say, ethnic groups or something, but let's keep going and you'll see that doesn't really hold up. Surprisingly enough, in the early Vedas,
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, the same thing happened in Bahubali, right? Where you get to the very end of, like, it's the beginning where you get the very end of the first film, and then you have the conquering force show up, even though it was allowed to get there. You have the conquering force show up, and they're all, of course, darker skin than the people in the native population. Of course, because dark is evil. I saw that and I'm just like, of course. It just seems so racist to me when I watched that film and that happened. I was just like, did really the barbarians have to be darker skinned? Did they really have to be darker skinned? Because everyone knows, like, what did the Romans primarily fear? The barbaric northern tribes, you know. The incredibly white, red-haired people. Some of the whitest people in the world. That's who the Romans feared the most. Those barbarians. Just because you're a barbarian doesn't mean you have very, 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 very dark skin. It's like, I thought that scene was hilarious. It was like, this feels racist. I'm feeling racist watching this movie when it got to that point. I was like, I don't think I should be allowed to watch this. Many of these migrations are older than all major civilizations. Exactly. Imagine running on a policy where you are superior to them. Like, your people are superior because they got there not 2,000 years ago, not 3,000 years ago, but 4,000 years ago. What? It's like, what? What? That's just so stupid.
we don't see that much commentary on skin color like that. What do I mean by that? Now let's go to the Upanishads, which is the end of the Vedas. The Upanishads are very difficult to date, but we could say most of them, if not all, are probably pre-Buddhist. So at least 700 BC plus. Earlier than that, maybe going into the thousands, maybe earlier. That's not the point of this video. We're talking about skin and not like a Neutrogena commercial or anything. Although if you have a good skincare routine, comment in the description below. I really need to know as well. Anyways, the Upanishads are important because they describe skin color in a lot of detail and for very specific purposes, and they give us some inferences. They tell us about the culture that we are researching right now. They tell us about how early Indians thought. Now I'm going to give you 3 very important verses, and this is in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The first one is, if one wishes to have a fair-skinned son who can master one Veda and have a full life, the mantra recommends rice with milk and ghee. The second verse describes if one wishes to have a brown or tawny son who will master 2 Vedas and have a full life. The mantra recommends rice with yogurt and ghee. The last one, and the most important verse, describes if one wishes to have a dark-skinned son with copper eyes who will master 3 Vedas and live a full life. This mantra recommends rice cooked in water, eaten with ghee. Now, do you get what just happened here? This is going to be the crux of the entire video. The verses are in ascending order of merit or austerity required to get a child. Now, this last child, the dark-skinned one with coppery eyes, it's kind of a weird description, isn't it? He's a special one. But why this emphasis on this skin color? Why is it so special? And does that mean that the Vedic people actually preferred a dark-skinned son or dark skin itself? Now is when our journey really begins. This verse is a reference to Lord Vishnu. The description of him having dark skin and red or coppery eyes, probably some type of, lighter brown eyes, that is considered the ultimate blessing. Dark skin was not a shame, it was a gift. In Vedic India, ancient Indians revered dark skin. Kali, Vishnu, Vaman, Ram, Krishna. All these gods are described as very beautiful, and the scriptures have super vivid descriptions of their dark skin. One description you'll frequently hear is Mega Shamam, which references a dark thundercloud ready to burst with rain. You'll find this in the Ramayana, in the Bhagavatam, in the Vishnu Puran, in the Mahabharata, and various other scriptures. A big source for this video is the book Black Avatar by Amit Majmudar. This is an awesome book. It's in the description. Go ahead and buy it. But in this book, Amit actually describes something he calls the 3 Krishnas in the Mahabharata. Firstly, there's a Krishna of divinity, Lord Krishna, the avatar of Vishnu. The Krishna of beauty, or Krishna, is Draupadi, the wife of the Pandavas. She was very dark-skinned and considered probably the most beautiful woman in the entire epic. Hence the name Krishna. Krishna, in this sense, means black or dark-skinned. Lastly is a Krishna of wisdom, Maharishi Ved Vyas, whose original name is Krishna Dvaipayana. Dvaipayana because he was born on an island, and Krishna because he was very dark-skinned. Again, also an avatar of Vishnu. At this point, you can kind of see that stigma around dark skin is not an ancient Indian thing. Ancient Indians actually liked all skin tones. Shiva and Parvati are noted for their very light or white skin. White as camphor, a type of mineral that's very white. Balaram, frequently paired with Krishna, is also light-skinned. Now this is kind of a theme. We see this with Vishnu and his great devotee Shesha, or this white, multi-headed great cobra. We'll see this with the sages, Nar being light-skinned and Narayan being dark-skinned. We see this with Lakshman being light-skinned and Ram being dark-skinned. It's kind of a beautiful juxtaposition or dichotomy that we see in Hindu theology, where we have this light-skinned devotee and dark-skinned god. Of course, we have these goddesses like Radha, Sita, or Lakshmi, who are also described as golden-skinned. Same thing with Lord Buddha, who's described as very golden-hued. And there's sometimes variations between descriptions, especially with the gold and the fair-skinned people, but the dark-skinned people are very prominently dark-skinned. My point is, ancient India had a unique acceptance around almost all skin tones. I'm sure there was some, internal variance between certain regions and areas and groups and time, but overall we see in these scriptures a wide acceptance of different skin colors. That's unique. That's different from India today. Nowhere can we see this better than the caves of Ajanta. The earliest carvings date around to around the 2nd century BC and were primarily used by Buddhist monks and sometimes traders or travelers as a place of refuge or a monastery. Over the next hundreds of years, you'd see scenes of Buddha's life, as well as contemporary India, be painted along the walls in these amazing murals. Something that immediately jumps out when you look at these paintings, these earliest depictions of Indians in terms of paint, is dark skin. There's a lot of people who are dark-skinned. And the artist had a wide array of pigments they could choose from minerals or plants or other types of earthen products, and you can kind of see this across the paintings as well. There are light-skinned depictions, there are dark-skinned depictions, there's everything in between. So you see a whole range, but you see a lot of dark skin. And look, Indians are primarily dark-skinned, especially around that area in Maharashtra. So they were painting themselves as they were. They chose to go black, but eventually they did kind of go back, but we'll discuss that in a little bit. Ajanta is the most famous, but we also see similar depictions in the Ellora caves in Maharashtra, the Bagh caves in Madhya Pradesh, the Sita Navasal cave in Tamil Nadu. All these date to around the 5th or the 7th century AD, and they're in different parts of India. So we can kind of see a snapshot of how Indians...
I have seen so many Indians with copper color eyes and dark skin. I am from North, by the way. Well, the thing is, I've seen copper eyes. I've absolutely seen copper eyes with fair skin. So it's not like 1-to-1. You can have a unique dynamic. But copper eyes is it's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I think my eyes are more orange than anything. More orange. But yeah, copper eyes are just pretty. Absolutely pretty. But yeah, I mean, again, India is incredibly diverse, and I think it's sad that politicians are literally using the Obama tactic of trying to pit a region against another region. Oh, you're racist if X, Y, and Z. Oh, we're superior because of X, Y, and Z. That kind of stupid nonsense, which has no purpose in politics, when politics is supposed to be about protecting its people. A leader who's protecting the people, who's there chosen by the people, but runs on the stasis of racism to win an election and then only caring about racism. It's just so stupid. It's so stupid. I hate it when politicians literally utilize something like that. When, like, who cares what happened thousands of years ago? Who cares who's marrying who now? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's what I find absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, because these people are just like, that's like me getting mad at my dad because he wasn't born here. He's not a real American. Like, what? If people actually thought of it that way, where if it was like their grandfather or their grandmother who was an immigrant and comes there, and then they start looking down on their grandmother because they're not, well, from the location, their father or mother are not from the location. If you actually start looking at it that way, and if people actually started looking at this stuff as if it was closer to home, instead of looking at a wider aspect, being like, oh, that group over there is from a different region, tens of thousands of years ago, they came here. But we, tens of thousands plus a year, came here. So of course we were the first. We're the originators, not that group over there, not that group over there. But if you make it small enough to where it's like your grandfather, your mother, who came there and met your father, are you going to denigrate your mother? Are you going to denigrate your grandfather? Because they're not native? They weren't some originators? I mean, so stupid. It's so stupid if you actually think about it. But the thing is, a lot of people don't think. They just base it off of emotion. It feels good.
Viewed themselves. So what exactly changed?
New beauty
Well,
standards.
most people skip around 1,000 years at this point, if not more, and go directly to British colonialism. But we're going to be a bit naughty. We're going to wade into controversy and something we're not supposed to talk about. We're going to discuss the truth. In 711 AD, we see the first Islamic invasions into India, and that is the Arab invasion of Sindh. Now, this isn't that significant territory-wise. The Arabs would be promptly stopped thereafter, and their expansion into India would kind of be mute. We wouldn't see further invasions from Muslims until much, much later. The reason I bring up the Arab invasion, though, is this is kind of the first interaction of the Islamic world with the Indian world. We'd start to see Arab merchants and travelers going into India more so. You could see this in Arab writing about Indians in kind of a backhanded compliment type of way, even though they were pretty effusive in terms of praise early on. What do I mean by this? Well, early Arab visitors or merchants or traders would praise Indians for their wisdom and their knowledge. But they were kind of surprised that these people were so dark-skinned and knowledgeable. Remember, Arabs practiced a slave trade that was connected to Africa, so they kind of had a negative connotation when it came to dark skin. And to be fair, people in the ancient world did have stigmas around skin color. India may have been a bit exceptional here, but other regions did seem to have this type of stigma. And, you know, it's the ancient world. We don't need to be PC here. They believe what they believe, and that was then. But again, the reason I bring this up is because since Arab culture was the pinnacle of Islamic culture, this dark skin stigma would start to spread or reinforce in some cases. And reinforcement is probably the more important way to describe it when it comes to India. That is because this skin color stigma, this association with dark skin being bad, this spread more so because of the Turkic invasions into India. Around the 10th century AD is when we'd see some of the first most prominent ones with Mahmud of Ghazni. Now, he would come down and sack Somnath multiple times, as well as other areas in India, but he wouldn't really make that much of a base in India. It'd be a bit more temporary. Same thing with a few later invaders until the Delhi Sultanate and eventually the Mughal Empire. Now, these Central Asian Turks themselves would be light-skinned, but they also had another cultural attachment to them. They were attached to Persian culture, and in Persian culture, light skin is a huge thing. That is a beauty standard. So they combine all of these sources of dark skin stigma, whether it's the Arab Islamic one or the Central Asian Turk one or the Iranian Persian one, and they would despise dark skin. They despised these Hindus and these Indians that they would conquer. They thought dark skin was ugly. And this is where we see kind of a slow motion cultural imposition start happening within India, especially the areas that they conquered. Add to the fact that a new slave trade also opened up. Dark-skinned Indians would be carried off into Central Asia and other parts of the Islamic world.
North would definitely have a genetic divide. North was connected to land and hence has more diversion and exotic features. Yeah, that's why there's more fluctuation up in north. When you start getting down into the point of India, I mean, it just seems to stagnate there. I mean, not that stagnation is bad, but I'm someone that believes like intercultural kind of like breeding, I think it's the best way. It is better for everyone. It's just better for everyone.
for slave work. Arabs associated dark skin with slavery due to the connection with Africa. Now it was a turn of Turks and Persians to associate more sun skin with slavery. Even the beloved poet Rumi, who isn't just popular today, but was also popular back then, he had a lot of poetry criticizing dark skin and associating the word Hindu with slavery or dark skin or arrogance or ignorance and all these very negative connotations. This combination, Hindu, dark skin, slavery. That is what the Islamic world started to think of Hindus. It went away from this earlier Arab idea of men of wisdom to becoming men of slavery. Rumi wrote Persian poetry, and Persian was the lingua franca of the Indian Muslim elites. So you start to see this.
So it was just because they were darker, they just assumed it was a slave nation? I mean, I don't know.
Dark skin stigma spreading not.
There's no point in trying to make sense of people from back in the day. There's no point sometimes, especially some people that had very questionable perspectives on the world.
Only across the Islamic world in the West, but also within India in the East. And this also started to rub off onto Hindu elites who were working with these Muslim kingdoms. When you start to see art coming out of Islamic India, you notice that skin is starting to get a lot lighter. The dark-skinned people are being dropped. They're absent. They just stop existing in many cases. And again, this would leak in.
It's like the Star Wars poster in China. They're minimized, put in the background because they're not important.
To Hindu artists as well. They were part of the same elite culture in many cases, so they would be patronized to paint light skin. And this is how Indians started to see themselves a bit differently. This is when the shame starts kicking in. But beyond art, we have to start looking at the real world as well. How did the Delhi Sultanate organize their empire, and what kind of hierarchy did they do? When it comes to their upper echelons, the historian Manaju Siraj notes that the nobles and servants of the state were all Turks of pure origin and Tajiks of good stock. Even converted Indian Muslims would face a banyan ceiling in the Delhi Sultanate's administration simply because of their ancestry, simply because of their skin color. Even later Muslim empires like the Mughals or the Bahmanis would import Turks or Persians or just Muslims from the West into their administration, as they highly valued these people simply because of their lineage, because they were not Indian, because they were light-skinned. Now think of the social effect of this. All the people at the top are light-skinned and all of the people below them are progressively getting darker and darker and darker. What does this do to a person's psychology? What does this do to a society's psychology when they see this? This foreign elite idea.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just the kind of stuff has been infected and been around for a long time. This weird kind of superiority mindset where fairer skinned is better skinned, to the point where Jesus Christ is always drawn as like a white man, as like an Asmongold, literally drawn and posted on a church everywhere. You know that scene where he has his hand up, he's like this, and then you like see his heart because it's drawn see-through. You normally see it in like Catholic churches, but yeah, that's Asmongold standing like that. It's like, no, most likely, especially during that time period, it was more of a darker tone. Not much darker, but more like I don't know, the type of whatever it was in that location in the world. But the fact that he's always seen as white is just to be like, oh, white is right. Why would anyone follow somebody who was talking, good morals and values if they were brown? That makes no gosh dang sense. So he's always been depicted as white, which doesn't really fit the narrative, it doesn't really fit the world where Jesus Christ came from. It doesn't, but a lot of people have, and now it's like hand in hand. Jesus Christ is white, which is how the Mormons were able to run so free with the belief of Jesus Christ coming from originally America, the United States of America. That's where the original Bethlehem is from. That's where the original Jesus Christ came from. And then he traveled to the Middle East, literally. But yeah, I mean, this whole weird fixation on skin tone is just so weird to me. But so many people have that, and it's weird, where people will use makeup to try and lighten their skin. People will use a surgery to try to bleach their melatonin, like all that kind of nonsense. It's just like, why?
The idea of lighter skin being better starts to percolate across India over these hundreds of years of Islamic rule. However, we have evidence that this obsession is not that widespread, and that's because Islamic empires didn't conquer all of India.
Yep.
Marco Polo, a famous medieval European traveler, actually traveled up and down the west coast of India, from Kerala to Maharashtra to Gujarat. Something he noticed and was kind of perplexed by was that the people liked dark skin. They tried to get darker skin, and their gods were black, as he described it. On the other hand, they saw white skin as kind of like a devilish quality, while dark skin was seen as a godly quality. And even when you zoom out during this time period, This was the age of the Bhakti movement. And who were some of the biggest gods that this movement was centered around? Of course, Ram, Krishna, and Vishnu, the Dark Lords of India. An explosion of poetry came out praising Ram and Krishna's thundercloud dark skin that was reminiscent of a blue lotus or deep blue ocean. The iconic dark blue skin starts to arise here. Now, on one hand, this might be because attitudes started to shift around really dark skin and people didn't like it. That definitely might be true, but the symbolic angle is also here. Either way, one can kind of see this as a societal pushback against this new beauty ideal, the embrace of dark skin over this new imposition of light skin. But anyways, back to the Europeans. Marco Polo was only one of many European travelers and explorers, missionaries, and merchants who started to trickle into India at this point.
It's not just slavery. For example, Egyptian pharaohs, which were basically considered gods on earth, were whiter than a general public. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Those who did nothing and didn't really go, like, again, you can take a black man from Africa, you can put him inside the house in shade, a comfortable AC, working from home, never having to go out. You will watch his skin tone, you know, lighten. Not to become white, but it will lighten. Why? Because he doesn't need to go out and work in the sun. He doesn't need to go out and constantly, you know, be sweating days on end. He can live comfortably, and his skin tone will change. Like you know the difference. Like if I work nights, so I don't get much sun. But if I actually start working out in the daytime, you would see me just get like a shade darker. Because your body reacts to the kind of environment you're in. So of course, pharaohs would be lighter skinned. Those who can sit indoors and just demand other people to do everything get lighter skin. Most rulers would have lighter skin because they aren't out in the sun all day. They aren't builders. Which is why normally I guess that's why like the caste could be seen. Oh, you're darker. You are inferior because you spend all your time out in the sun. Of course, you're going to get a little darker. Of course you're going to get a little darker because you're out in the sun all day. You're working in the fields. You're having to take your cart from one location to the next. If you're like a merchant, a little more shade because you're in closed doors, you're in the shade. But the people who are hawking your wares, they're out in the sun. The whole thing goes kind of with it. This was due to pharaohs not doing guard, sork in sun. Guard. I think I don't know what you're saying, but yeah, you're basically saying what I'm saying because they weren't out in the sun. They're just not out in the sun, so their skin tone doesn't get darker. So of course they're fairer skinned. It goes with the territory. So no matter what, all people who tend to be up and up will have lighter skin tones, which is why a lot of the elites, like in the U.S., either they'll go out and get sun or they go to a tanning salon, or if you're like the ruler of the United States of America, a spray can, an orange spraying can is enough.
1,000 years earlier, the Greeks came to conquer India, but they couldn't really cut it. Rather, it was time for trade, both in goods as well as information. In terms of descriptions of how they looked, they said the North Indians looked like Egyptians and the South Indians looked like Ethiopians. They just didn't have woolly hair. Their words, not mine. And this early European contact with these Greeks and even some Romans was fairly positive because of this exchange of ideas as well as riches. As time went on, and especially after the Middle Ages and into the age of exploration and colonialism, things started to change.
Victory of whiteness.
While India's Turkic conquerors were into light skin, Europeans were another level. Much more concrete ideas began to emerge around the ideas of race and the differences between people. Some of the earliest of this rhetoric that we hear is actually from the Portuguese. We have a lot of accounts of Portuguese rule in places like Goa, and especially of the Inquisition, when locals were forced to convert to Christianity, as well as the descriptions of these locals. Francis Xavier, a missionary who advocated for this brutal Inquisition, notes how he detested the blackness of the Hindus, and he kind of gloated about their black idols being destroyed. This guy probably has around over 100 institutes and schools named after him in India today. Now, while the British didn't really have as much religious motivation when they came to India, it was mostly commercial and trade and eventually conquest, they shared the disdain for dark skin with the Portuguese. And again, I don't want to judge people based on modern standards. People back then were racist, like, let's be honest. But I do want to give you the context of how
because it was they were people of the world they lived in. And again, people want to feel like they're superior. It goes back to what no matter what time we are in the world, we all have, we don't learn from history. We don't. We have this recurring problem over and over and over and over and over again, where everyone wants to feel themselves superior. White people wanted to feel themselves superior because we are absolutely superior. And then you have like the religious people that believe their religion is superior. You'll have forced conversions, or you'll go in and try to eradicate anyone that doesn't believe in what you believe, or you'll turn all their women into like breeding factories, like anyone who knows the Ottoman Empire's history. There you go. That's kind of what they did. But it's just like there's the religious extremism where they believe themselves to be superior. There is the political extremism where no matter where they'll believe themselves to be superior. There is the ethnic superiorism where they think they themselves are superior. There's the area extremism, like in India, what it's dealing with, where it's like, oh, I'm from the original, the OG genetic history of India, so I'm superior to this neighbor whose family has been in India for like 30,000 years, but my family got in India 30,100 years ago. So of course, my family is superior to that family that's 30,000 years old. I mean, that kind of nonsense is just stupid. It's just stupid. But extremism exists because everyone wants to feel superior. Everyone wants to feel like they can look down on everybody else. Everybody does. Everybody does. And the problem is, most people don't acknowledge it. They just feel like they're superior. Instead of seeing it, it's just like, oh, why do I have this superiority mindset? Why am I looking down on these people? Why am I looking down on that opposing politics? Why am I looking down on this opposing religion? Why? Because most people don't want to acknowledge that they want to feel superior to somebody else. Because it always comes back to superiority.
European colonialists came to India and how they viewed Indians, especially them
Dealing
being
with
considered
this
less than because of their dark skin.
eons.
Think of how often you hear the word fair in English literature as a sign of beauty. Now, other global literature also has descriptions about maybe light skin being better or certain skin being better, whatever, but this almost single-minded obsession within British literature about fair being good gives us a clue into the mentality of a lot of these colonialists. And as the British conquered India after commercializing it, colonialism came into full effect. Not only were Indian markets and industries destroyed by the parasitic effect of colonialism, but also Indian self-conception. The East India Company and the British Crown ran British India with a network of Indians. These Indians would work under British officers and imbibe British values. This idea of dark skin being bad, again, we have another set of elite Indians imbibing this after the earlier Islamic empires. And elite attitudes eventually rain down. There is a trickle-down effect here in terms of culture. So this is how we start seeing a greater and greater idea of dark skin being bad. Another aspect you have to consider is the British obsession with race and anthropology, and how it would be integrated when it came to studying India. The British were a very detail-oriented people and super systematic. Whether used for good or bad,
Fair
this is
blonde
what the
maiden.
British were, and they were super efficient when it
No
came to
maiden.
this meant they would start noticing details in people that even the people may not notice. The British recorded the differences of skin color between castes, the differences in their demeanor, the differences in how they carried their life, and they would craft theories such as the martial race theory or the Aryan invasion theory. Remember those migrations I described earlier in the video? Those types of migrations, again, they happen all across the world. But now we started to see a politicization of it and a racialization of it from the British. And it's true that castes kind of are distinct ethnic groups, even in terms of their genetics. But while they have differing ratios, they all come from the same sources in most cases. Not just that, but this isn't all that salient. You can't necessarily tell someone's caste by their skin color or vice versa. Maybe you could tell what region they're from, and even then it's kind of difficult at times. Nonetheless, this type of racialization has really caught on in certain—
Like, it's funny how in India, people can tell where someone's from based on their skin tone, like where they're from in India, or by their accent, their American English accent. They can tell. They can tell.
in parts of India, especially a place like Tamil Nadu with the Dravidian movement. Even nowadays, there's these ideas about indigeneity where certain castes are more indigenous than others, and measuring like genetic percentages and stuff like that. And this type of stuff is almost always just used for hatred. Let's just be honest, that's what it is. This probably isn't the best path for Indians to go on, dividing themselves by color and genetics and race and whatever group mix you are. I don't think it's good. But that's personally just me. Either way, back to the British. Thomas Macaulay.
Yeah, it's funny how the people on the outside see it, and it's just like, this is a retarded mindset to have. It's just a retarded mindset to have. But then again, everyone falls victim to these kinds of mindsets. Everyone does. Everybody does. The problem is a lot of people just want to feel like they're in a part of a group, and they want to feel superior in that group. So they of course, they do it.
A leader in the British administration of India created this brown Englishman concept, where he wanted to craft a group of Indians who were Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, opinions, morals, and intellect. The British—
Well, the thing is, the British, they want to That's technically going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. Again, like I've talked, like India has really fast forwarded its first world presence, that it's going to have the repercussions of having first world problems, which normally comes with the world being so small that it is right now, that the next generation is being influenced by the retarded American influencers. And they're going to try to embody that stupidity. That now that's going to be the case. It's going to be English in taste, opinions, morals, and intellect, which means no intellect. Morals, no morals. In opinions, no opinion, but the conforming opinion. And taste, well, it's India, so of course they'll have good taste when it comes to food, but nothing other than that. Nothing other than that. But that's what's funny. It's just like now the West is known for no real opinions, because you're not allowed to have your own opinion. You have to follow the crowd. No morals. Open relationships. Open everything. Do whatever you want because nobody cares. There's no morals. There's no God. There's no nothing. That kind of mindset. And intellect. We're just all retarded. We're just all retarded.
Not only physically conquered and destroyed India, they also did it mentally. They picked apart Indian institutions and replaced them with their own. Will Durant, possibly the most accomplished American historian ever, notes that when the British came, there was throughout India a system of communal schools managed by village communities.
And
the agents of the East India Company destroyed
with
these
no
village
seasoning
communities and took no steps to replace the schools. Even today, after the century of effort to restore them, they stand at 66% of their original number 100 years ago. There are now 730,000 villages and only 162,015 primary schools. Only 7% of the boys and 1.5% of the girls receive schooling, i.e. 4% of the whole. Such schools as the government has established are not free, but exact a tuition fee, which, though small to a Western purse, looms large to a family always hovering on the edge of starvation. Mass Indian education basically ceased while elite Indian education was controlled by the British. As elite Indians began to consume more British education and literature and ideas, Macaulay's words came true. We started to see brown Englishmen. But later, many of these brown Englishmen would rebel and fight for freedom. However, their biases remained. All these ideas about Indian inferiority and shame would stay in these people despite fighting for freedom. There was a sense of deep shame here. A shame around Indian religion, culture, values, and indeed, skin color. As the Indian Republic was born and India became one, these elite ideas would now start to supercharge and accelerate across all of India. Many of the first producers of early Bollywood actually came from northwest India, a lot of Punjabis especially. And most of these people were light-skinned and or into this brown Englishman type of concept. An obsessive amount of effort actually went into making these light-skinned Indians even more lighter with, say, lighting or makeup. The standard of beauty would then spread across India as Indians went and still do kind of go crazy for films. But a consequence of this is that the Indian masses actually started to hate themselves and their skin color. They didn't look like the people on screen. And this isn't just about facial features or anything. This is about, again, their skin color. One interesting manifestation of this in the Republic of India's history is secessionism. Separatist movements in places like Kashmir, Punjab, or Northeast India, a lot of their foundational thought about why they are separate is related to their light skin, their whiteness. While they'll speak about freedom and human rights in the English language, when they switch to local, a lot of it is just talking crap about Indians because they're dark skinned and how much better they are than other Indians because of their lighter skin. The colorism and ethnic supremacy angle of these separatist movements is integral. It is foundational. Their separatism ultimately rests on the fact that they don't like being considered Indian. They don't like dark skin. Now, attitudes around skin color still persist in India, even though I do think it's gotten better today than in the past. Images of gods and goddesses, especially in terms of acting roles, rarely feature this type of dark skin that's described in the past, this mega shaman. We usually see actors with lighter or wheatish tones at most. I think this is starting to change though. India is undergoing a massive transformation in how it views itself. Its self-conception, as we talked about. There's an idea of India throwing away this 1,000 years of humiliation or shame or slavery and embracing what it—
Light skin was necessary for black and white films. Well, that is absolutely true. That is like 100% true because because earlier cameras had terrible contrast. It wasn't that. So I had my degree in like my college degree in film. So I did lighting. I took a lighting class just for the sake of it, and we lit for film, for black and white. The lighting needs to be far harsher for everything. For everything. You need like 2 to 3 times more lights to light for a black and white film than you do for a color film. Not only that, is like, let's say you cast a black person, you need 4 to 5 times more lights to light him so he can be seen. And that this isn't racial. It just has to do with the fact that, again, the contrast needs to be picked up. You need to pick out the details in his face. If you can't see the details in his face because they're blending into the background, it becomes a problem. Like, this is the issue with like a Spider-Man Noir. Like, it wasn't lit properly for black and white. So they had to use a filter to try and clean it up, which makes the film look bad, makes the show look bad in black and white, look really bad in black and white, because it wasn't designed for black and white. It should have been designed for black and white and then recorded in color, and then they bring the color tone down for that. But no, they didn't record it for black and white. They didn't. So it looks bad. But that's the thing. It's like, you could cast black, but the thing is, you would need more lights. You would need, more power. It becomes a problem. That's why they would cast primarily white people and everything. I mean, one of the first ones that really tried to integrate the unification between black and white families, like, mixing together, was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which was done as a comedy, because that was the only way white people would accept that film, was a comedy where a girl goes off to college, tells her parents she's bringing home, and I think the film was actually done in color, but it was released in many theaters in black and white. But the thing is, it was already kind of done in color so people could pick it out. But the scenes were bright. I think it was primarily like shot during daytime, and it wasn't in closed studios. So it was far more bright in the background. So you could, see the man. You could see the man. But it was done in a way where it's just like the parents know that the girl is bringing a boy home to visit the folks. And then the joke is, well, he's black. He's black. So it's a running gag. It's a running gag.
Actually is, embracing its ancient roots and embracing its indigeneity. There's a pride in being Indian that's different than it was in the recent past. Some may call it nationalism, some may call it patriotism, some may call it indigenous rights. Whatever you want to call it, Indians are changing how they view themselves, and it's mostly in a positive direction. Indians are beginning to look themselves in the mirror and not look away.
I don't think nationalism is a good thing. Like, I think patriotism is one thing. Nationalism is more of an extremist. That's more of a far right kind of thing where you believe like your government it's not good. It's not good. It's not good. It's just like the same as like being too far left where you think the government is bad, incredibly bad. Like, I think being a patriot is a good thing.
And shame. Rather embracing who and what they are. This is a new India on the horizon, and it's filled with new Indians. Proud, unapologetic, and aspiring. And honestly, I don't think this change is simply skin deep. And like I told you before, once you go black, you don't go back. Thanks everyone for watching. This is Akshar from The Emissary. I tried some new editing techniques in this video and maybe a bit cooler lighting than I used to do. But do tell me what you thought about the video. Make sure you comment. I love when you guys give me questions. I try to reply to almost every.
Yeah, I like that. That's very insightful, because it's just like the people's overfixation on color is just so bad. It's just so bad. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Again, when you bring up like the fact that it was easier back in the day to cast white people rather than black people in films, it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. But the whole thing is just so freaking ridiculous. That whole thing is freaking ridiculous. I don't understand this over fixation on color, this over fixation on like what is considered beauty, especially when you realize that beauty can change from week to week. And everyone has a different preference. You can go to China, they have a different concept of beauty than America. And America has a different concept of beauty than Japan. And Japan has a different concept of beauty than South Korea. And Korea has a different concept of beauty than India. And India has a different concept of beauty than Mexico. Like, no matter where you go in the world, the concept of what is considered beautiful consistently changes. Consistently changes. Which is why I think it's so weird that people get so overly fixated on this stuff. So overly fixated on it, which is really tragic. It is really, really tragic that people just run down the rabbit hole of, oh, this is beauty. I need to change who I am to become this. Which is just tragic. Be happy with who you are. Everyone's a unique individual that needs to find joy in life for themselves. Who are you as a person? What makes you happy to be you? Instead of trying to chase this fictional unicorn that everyone wants. It's just like Hollywood chasing this modern audience. It doesn't exist. Just like the ideal beauty, it doesn't exist. These concepts are just there for people to constantly be chasing something. What you do is you just do you. You just be you. You be the best version of you as you can without needing to completely ruin yourself chasing some weird ideal. Be comfortable with who you are. Don't be trying to appease everybody. Appease yourself. Make yourself happy. Don't make your neighbor happy. Don't make that one person that made fun of you in school because they thought your eyes were too wide, happy. They don't matter. You matter. Focus on you. So these people who focus on skin tone and everything, and it's tragic that India really fell down the rabbit hole of being used and abused by other nations and taken advantage of by other nations constantly throughout its history. Whether in like, not entirely, but it did deal with like constant fighting at its borders. People trying to conquer India, but India was never, ever 100% conquered until the British Empire, which was literally the first. And how did they conquer? They just bought off the sultans. They paid off the rulers in charge of each location to capitulate and sell out their own people. That was how.
You guys got a video? Why is it so bad?
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Why is it like that?